Chapter 3, Computer and Internet Crime, Part 4 of 4, Establishing a Security Policy. The learning outcomes include assess organizational risk to information assets and develop a plan to respond, including user education and reflection after an incident. Explore what actions might be taken when responding to a security attack or potential threat to the organization's assets, and understand computer forensics, which includes aspects of criminal justice, information systems, and risk management. But it's not like you see on dramas or in the movies. As IT managers, we need to be aware of the different risks faced by the organization. The goal of risk management is to determine the best investments of resources to protect the organization from threats. Those resources that are most critical to company performance, for instance, the online ordering system for Amazon, are more important in terms of risk than the HR management system. Both are critical to proper monitoring of the system, but if the ordering system goes down, money and customer goodwill will be lost, which is obviously not good. The HR system is also important, but if it goes down for a day, and assuming employees are still paid as per regular, and Amazon can continue operating for a short time while the HR system is unavailable. First, you must understand the IT assets in the organization that you must manage. Assets include hardware, software, information systems, graphical user interface, networks, databases, and security infrastructure, among others. A stable, reliable system that performs day in and day out is critical to the organization and its stakeholders. It's also important to understand loss events. What sort of events should the IT manager be concerned about? A loss event is anything that occurs and that has a negative impact on an asset. For instance, in the Sony hack, they suffered a catastrophic loss event affecting all aspects of its business. Users were unable to access the PlayStation Network, unreleased movies were released, employee email systems were compromised, and customer and employee files were disrupted. Sony's loss event was catastrophic, and a smaller company likely would not have survived. Sony attempted to keep the public and stakeholders informed about how they were responding to the attack, and they had the money and a patient customer base that allowed them to survive. Smaller companies would have gone out of business, and Sony's reputation has been harmed for years to come. C-level IT managers and their business peers must establish a security policy to deal with potential loss events. Development of a good security policy includes describing how people who respond when, or if, but it's really when, an event occurs. For instance, users need to be told what systems are compromised and how to protect their data. Some members of the organization may be required to keep intact a record of what happened in preparation for a potential lawsuit. Others may be told not to access information on the network until the loss event is overcome. Still others may be handling public relations and keeping partners and employees and other stakeholders informed. Others may be handling risk management and reporting loss events to insurance agencies to help recover from the loss. Regardless, a good security policy will outline how all members of the organization and other stakeholders should respond to a loss event. If possible, automate what should happen. Include written policies that show a flow chart of what happens when a loss event occurs, and make sure that all written policies match any automated system responses. With the use of mobile devices, and simply with the advent of more BYOD, or bring your own devices, companies must include external devices and mobile devices in security policies and plans. How many of you have at least one smartphone with you right now? How many of you have a laptop or an iPad or a Surface Pro or something else? Right now I have a Dell laptop, a Samsung microphone, an iPad 4, and the Surface Pro 3 within reach of where I'm sitting. A company has to assume that its employees will bring personal devices with them to work, and they need to have policies that protect the organization against these threats. Mobile devices, personal or organizational, represent a ripe area for security vulnerabilities, since they generally have less protection than laptops and desktops. An important part of the IT manager's responsibility is employee education. This education must include not only full and part-time employees, but others who may access the organizational assets, including customers and contract workers and suppliers. A simple step to protecting assets is through a password policy. How often must the passwords be changed? What requirements do you have to create strong passwords? How many of you have multiple passwords that are difficult to remember, like me? Employers, retailers, customers, and others have different password policies. Thus, I can't use the same password for multiple systems, which from a security standpoint is good. And I don't want to use the same password since that makes all the systems I access less secure. I use a password management system called LastPass. There are others out there, but they have limitations just like LastPass does. If I allow my system to remember the LastPass master password, then anyone who has physical possession of my system can access all my passwords. But if I make it too difficult to remember passwords, then people will write the passwords down or keep them in a Word document or an email. When password policies become too difficult and restrictive, then passwords actually become less secure, since people have to have a method of remembering them. So you have to keep the policy simple enough that the user can remember the password, but difficult enough to keep hackers from guessing the password. The organization must ensure that people don't share their passwords. How many of you have shared your password with another? Your significant other or spouse, perhaps. A friend who needed to upload a file for you. If you share your password, it's no longer secret. I have been guilty of sharing my passwords as well. We should have explicit policies that prevent sharing of passwords, even with people we trust. If someone needs to access your passwords, for instance, if you're ill or infirm, or you pass away, then give them your LastPass login for emergency access and change the password once you become able to access it. There's no good way to ensure your security when you share with others, but there are legitimate times that others need to access your accounts. The company should have strict access control policies that protect the assets of the organization. These assets may not be simply technology, e.g. iPads or smartphones, but also the data itself is a valuable resource. Employees should be encouraged to report anything suspicious or unusual immediately. The employee should know how to report it, when to report it, and to whom to report it. Finally, as we mentioned previously, mobile devices cannot be excluded from security policies. You should assume that others will bring their devices, which don't have the same level of protection as your organizational assets, and you need a plan to handle these devices. Perhaps you offer guest access to network services, but they are kept separate from regular access. The important thing is to plan for the potential loss event and make sure all employees, permanent, temporary, and contract, understand their role in protecting assets. A good education and training plan with refresher courses and reminders on a regular basis is essential to developing secure systems. There are multiple approaches to preventive measures, including development of good security policies along with physical prevention of loss events. A firewall is a physical prevention of potential loss events. The firewall may be a combination of hardware and software that prevents external users from accessing the internal network. It sits between the internal network and the internet. Intrusion detection systems, or IDS, are commonly used to prevent unauthorized access to an organization's network assets. They monitor the system and report when unusual activity is noted or when access is being attempted through bypassing of organizational security. For instance, if users suddenly begin to attempt to log in unsuccessfully multiple times, even if access is not achieved, the information security group needs to know about this. Perhaps user IDs have been compromised and someone is trying to use software to guess a password until they are successful. An intrusion detection system should notify internal teams even if the attempts are not successful. Of course, the organization should use updated antivirus and malware detection software. This software should be updated regularly, patched when needed, and be smart enough to detect unusual patterns that may indicate the presence of a new virus. Even with the best processes, some viruses will slip through, and the organization should have plans to address these illicit attempts to get into the system. Through these and other measures, the organization establishes safeguards against attacks. While external hackers should be stopped where possible, a good security manager will not overlook insiders, which is where many attacks originate. Whether they are malicious or the target of a phishing attack, insiders with their authorized access to network resources are a substantial risk. This is where proper education and training becomes very important. Finally, no plan is foolproof, and situations change over time. Periodic IT security audits are necessary to identify threats, risk, and potential loss events as they change over time. Earlier, we mentioned the U.S. Computer Emergency Readiness Team, also referred to as USCERT. USCERT is a federal agency that works with the Department of Homeland Security as well as with public and private organizations which may experience detrimental effects as a result of technology issues. The aim of USCERT is to protect the U.S. from terrorism and other potential risks, including protecting the nation's infrastructure against cyber attacks. Consider what would happen, for instance, if a water treatment plant's technology operations were disrupted and the filtering process was instructed not to remove harmful contaminants, or a nuclear power plant's technology systems controls were overridden, causing the core to overheat. Clearly, these are critically important and involve harm to people. In less dire circumstances, USCERT may make recommendations on how to overcome technology malware or viruses, or they may even work directly with organizations, particularly if a foreign power is suspected of disrupting organizations of a large U.S. firm. After the Sony attack, for instance, USCERT provided a list of the indicators of compromise that should be added to protect organizational technology assets to see if a network was compromised. Here you see the NIST Incident Response Life Cycle. It begins with preparation, then moves to detection and analysis, followed by containment, eradication and recovery, and post-incident activity. We will be referring to this life cycle throughout the presentation. When, not if, there is a breach, your organization should already have a plan in place to respond to it. Components of the response plan include preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication and recovery, and post-incident activity. Notice that the first component of the response plan is preparation. Your organization must prepare for the likely breach by securing, protecting, and responding to attacks with a well-defined response plan. The main goal of a response plan is to restore normal modes of operation with minimum cost and disruption to normal business activities after an unexpected adverse event. We look at organizational planning for unexpected adverse events when the use of technology is disruptive and business operations come close to a standstill. Adverse events are going to occur, and InfoSec must plan for them. An organization's ability to weather losses caused by breaches, corruption of data, etc., any unexpected event, depends on that proper planning and execution, without which an unexpected event can cause severe damage to an organization's information resources and assets from which it may never recover. To illustrate the need for response planning, consider these statistics. 93% of businesses with data center failures for 10 or more days go bankrupt within 1 year. That's a powerful argument for the importance of business continuity planning and disaster recovery. 43% of companies that experience a disruptive event never reopen. So almost half of businesses who have a serious breach or stolen information will never reopen. Think about that. It's important for your organization. Finally, only 6% of businesses without a disaster recovery plan survive in the long term. Those without a plan inevitably experience a disruptive event, and almost all of them go out of business quickly. Clearly, response planning is an integral part of an overall organizational business strategy. The incident response plan outlines 3 main activities. First, detection is required as quickly as possible to recognize that an incident is underway. Lack of detection can lead to even more damage to the organization's information assets. Reaction is responding to the incident in a predetermined manner to contain and mitigate its potential damage. After detecting and reacting, the organization should return all systems and data to their natural state before the incident during the recovery phase. Once an actual incident has been confirmed and properly classified, response planning moves from the detection phase to the reaction phase. As part of the response plan, a number of steps must occur quickly and may occur concurrently. These steps include notification of key personnel, the assignment of tasks, and documentation of the incident. First is clear and unambiguous notification of key personnel. As soon as an incident is declared, the right people must be immediately notified in the right order. An alert roster may be used, which is a document containing contact information and sequential and or hierarchical notification order. The alert message is a scripted description of the incident. Other key personnel may also be notified of the incident, but only after the incident has been confirmed, but before media or other external services learn of it. The second step is assignment of task, including to whom, what position, the task should be assigned, when, and in what manner, how. Finally is documentation of the incident. As soon as the incident has been confirmed and the notification process is underway, the team should begin documentation of the incident. It should record the who, what, when, where, why, and how of each action taken while the incident is occurring. Documentation serves as a case study after the fact to determine if the right actions were taken and if they were effective. It can also prove the organization did everything possible to deter the spread of the incident, and this might help in legal cases in the future and may limit damages. Computer forensics, also known as digital forensics. Hey, that's easy. We all know what it means, right? We see it on TV or Netflix or on CSI or Criminal Minds or Law and Order. They need to know all men between the ages of 35 to 40 who currently live in Washington, D.C., who lost a father and who have owned real estate in Virginia and had a car registered in Idaho and served in the first Desert Storm in Iraq. Boom! They type in a few keys on the computer and they have it narrowed down to 3 names. Sound familiar? Probably, but it's far from reality. All states, counties, and cities are not linked. When they are linked through the FBI, the records may be incomplete. Healthcare records require a different level of approval, as do military records. In some cases, the analyst will hack into government databases to get the necessary information, violating the USA Patriot Act and facing jail time. The point is, these shows are not reality. In reality, law enforcement agencies must have probable cause and establish their evidence in front of a judge to get a subpoena for access to the data. Some who complete computer forensics analysis identify data from computer systems, collect relevant evidence with proper approvals as needed, examine the data for relevance, and preserve the data that is present on information assets. Analysts preserve the data because it may be admitted as evidence in a court of law. On a TV show or movie, the first thing that investigators do when they see a computer is turn it on and try to guess the password. No, that's not what they should do. An analyst should preserve the original, make a copy, and do the analysis on the copy. That's how you do it. IT security analysts must have elements of law and computer science training, or they need to acquire it. After the security is secured and cloned, then the analysis continues. After the analysis, the organization may file a civil or criminal complaint against the perpetrator if they can find him or her. You can take a look at this short video introduction to computer forensics found at the link given. So forensics is the coherent application of methodical investigatory techniques to present evidence of crimes in a court or court-like setting. In contrast, digital forensics involves the preservation, identification, extraction, documentation, and interpretation of digital media for evidentiary and/or root cause analysis. Like traditional forensics, digital forensics follows clear, well-defined methodologies, but still tends to be as much art as science. Evidentiary material, or EM, also known as an item of potential evidentiary value, is any information that could potentially support the organization's legal or policy-based case against a suspect. An item does not become evidence until it is formally admitted to evidence by a judge or other ruling official. Digital forensics can be used for 2 key purposes. 1, to investigate allegations of digital malfeasance, a crime against or using digital media, computer technology, or related components without proper authorization is referred to as digital malfeasance. 2, it could be used to perform root cause analysis. If an incident occurs and the organization suspects an attack was successful, digital forensics can be used to examine the path and methodology used to gain unauthorized access, as well as to determine how pervasive and successful the attack was. This will help develop better controls and be better prepared for future attacks. In digital forensics, all investigations follow the same basic methodology. They identify relevant items of evidentiary material or evidentiary value, which is EM as we showed on the previous slide, acquire or seize the evidence without alterations or damage, take steps to assure that the evidence is at every step verifiably authentic and is unchanged from the time it was seized, analyze the data without risking modification or unauthorized access, and report the findings to the proper authority. In summary, IT managers still must make ethical decisions when protecting data. Moreover, they must follow all regulations and legal statutes that are applicable. In order to properly protect information assets, there should be a multi-layer process in place where vulnerabilities have been identified. Part of protection of information assets is proper education of users. Assessment of threats should be ongoing, with changes to how information assets are protected as needs and capabilities change. The C-level manager for IT and/or information security should lead the effort to ensure the safety of information assets, the ability of an organization to keep running during a crisis, and the organization's recovery and reflection after the crisis passes. Finally, one of the tools used to protect information assets is digital or computer forensics, which combines elements of computer science, information systems, law, risk management, logical, and criminal justice. Forensics is a complex problem-solving effort, not like what you see on Netflix, on a Netflix series, or police procedural.